Hare Krishna, my friends. Welcome to Bhaktiville, and welcome to our second reading of Srimad Bhagavatam in Bhaktiville. I'm so excited. So today we'll read the verses up on our board on the slideshow, and then we'll begin our reading of the introduction, which begins on PDF page 27 or page 5 of the book. So let me just move the slideshow so we're at the right place. There's the right place. But before I begin, let me offer my obeisances. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane. I offer my respectful obeisances unto His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is very dear to Lord Krishna, having taken shelter at his lotus feet. And to all the Vaishnavas here and everywhere, past, present, and future, Panchakalpa Tarubhyashta Kripasindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. I also offer my respectful obeisances unto the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees and can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. So we'll begin by singing these verses up here on the board. I'm not quite sure about the English. We won't do the English for this first one, but for the next three, we'll do the English, the Sanskrit, and then the English. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, and we'll sing it in unison. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I'm not sure how it works if we have our mics on. What do you think? Should we have our... I think have everyone's mics muted except mine, and people can sing it along at home as long as you want. Yes, Ocean Man says there are some delays. Yeah, so let's do it that way. Although that means everybody has to listen to me sing it and not everybody else. All right, let me get to the next verse. And of course, it's not showing up on my screen. Oh, okay, here it is. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tatto jayam udirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Now let's move that slide to the next one. Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyanta Stohya Padrani Vidunoti Suhrit Satam. Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, Supersoul, in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee, who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. And then the next verse on our board. Nashta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. All right, so Ocean Man, if you don't have a copy of this, it's in that little pink box to the left of Bhaktiville. There'll be a link there in the note card to the PDF that we're using. Okay, good. You've got it. All right, so we're reading the introduction, which is page 27 of the PDF or page 5 of the book. The concept of God and the conception of absolute truth are not on the same level. The Srimad Bhagavatam hits on the target of the absolute truth. The conception of God indicates the controller, whereas the conception of the absolute truth indicates the summum bonum, or the ultimate source of all energies. There is no difference of opinion about the personal feature of God as the controller, because a controller cannot be impersonal. Of course, modern government, especially democratic government, is impersonal to some extent, but ultimately the chief executive head is a person, and the impersonal feature of government is subordinate to the personal feature. So without a doubt, whenever we refer to control over others, we must admit the existence of a personal feature. Because there are different controllers for different managerial positions, there may be many small gods. According to the Bhagavad Gita, any controller who has some specific extraordinary power is called Vibhuti Mat Sattva, or controller empowered by the Lord. There are many Vibhuti Mat Sattvas, controllers or gods with various specific powers, but the absolute truth is one without a second. The Srimad Bhagavatam designates the absolute truth, or the summum bonum, as the Param Satyam, or the highest truth. The author of Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Vyasadeva, first offers his respectful obeisances unto the Param Satyam, the absolute truth, and because the Param Satyam is the ultimate source of all energies, the Param Satyam is the Supreme Person. The gods or the controllers are undoubtedly persons, but the Param Satyam, from whom the gods derive powers of control, is the Supreme Person. The Sanskrit word Ishvara, controller, conveys the import of God, but the Supreme Person is called the Parameshvara, or the Supreme Ishvara. The Supreme Person, or Parameshvara, is the Supreme Conscious Personality. And because he does not derive any power from any other source, he is supremely independent. In the Vedic literatures, Brahma is described as the supreme god, or the head of all other gods, like Indra, Chandra, Varuna, etc. But the Srimad Bhagavatam confirms that even Brahma is not independent as far as his power and knowledge are concerned. He received knowledge in the form of the Vedas from the Supreme Person who resides within the heart of every living being. That Supreme Personality knows everything directly and indirectly. Individual infinitesimal persons, or parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality, may know directly and indirectly everything about their bodies or external features, but the Supreme Personality knows everything about both his external and internal features. The word Janmadhyasya suggests that the source of all productions, maintenance, or destruction is the same Supreme Conscious Person. That's the very first verse, which translates to, "You are the beginning of all things," Janmadhyasya. Even in our present experience, we can know that nothing is generated from inert matter, but inert matter can be generated from the living entity. For instance, by contact with the living entity, the material body develops into a working machine. Men, with a poor fund of knowledge, mistake the bodily machinery to be the living being. But the fact is that the living being is the basis of the bodily machine. The bodily machine is useless as soon as the living spark is away from it. Similarly, the original source of all material energy is the Supreme Person. This fact is expressed in all the Vedic literatures, and all the exponents of spiritual science have accepted this truth. The living force is called Brahman, and one of the greatest acharyas, teachers, namely Sripad Shankaracharya, has preached that Brahman is substance, whereas the cosmic world is category. So I just want to take a little aside trip here. I had no idea what he meant, that Brahman is substance, whereas the cosmic world is category. So I looked it up online, and this idea of substance and category is originally from the Upanishads, but was carried on in the West through Plato, Aristotle, and then, of course, in India and through Sripad Shankaracharya. But so substance is Brahman, which underlies all living beings and is all living entities. So that's the substance, and category means everything else. So substance and category. And it's a philosophical idea, substance and category. You can look it up. All right, back to the text, sorry. The original source of all energies is the living force, and he is logically accepted as the Supreme Person. He is therefore conscious of everything past, present, and future, and also of each and every corner of his manifestations, both material and spiritual. An imperfect living being does not even know what is happening within his own personal body. He eats his food, but does not know how this food is transformed into energy or how it sustains his body. When a living being is perfect, he is aware of everything that happens. And since the Supreme Person is all perfect, it is quite natural that he knows everything in all detail. Consequently, the perfect personality is addressed in the Srimad Bhagavatam as Vasudev, or one who lives everywhere in full consciousness and in full possession of his complete energy. All of this is clearly explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The reader has ample opportunity to study this critically. Oh, Hare Krishna, Kandita. I'm glad you made it. We're on page 28 of the PDF, or page 6 of the book. In the modern age, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu preached the Srimad Bhagavatam by practical demonstration. It is easier to penetrate into the topics of the Srimad Bhagavatam through the medium of Sri Chaitanya's causeless mercy. Therefore, a short sketch of his life and precepts is inserted herein to help the reader understand the real merit of Srimad Bhagavatam. It is imperative that one learn the Srimad Bhagavatam from the person Bhagavatam. The person Bhagavatam is one whose very life is Srimad Bhagavatam in practice. Since Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the absolute personality of Godhead, he is both Bhagavan and Bhagavatam, in person and in sound. Therefore, his process of approaching the Srimad Bhagavatam is practical for all the people of the world. It was his wish that the Srimad Bhagavatam be preached in every nook and corner of the world by those who happen to take their birth in India. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the science of Krishna, the absolute personality of Godhead, of whom we have preliminary information from the text of the Bhagavad Gita. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said that anyone, regardless of what he is, who is well versed in the science of Krishna, Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, can become an authorized preacher or preceptor in the science of Krishna. There is a need for the science of Krishna in human society for the good of all suffering humanity of the world, and we simply request the leaders of all nations to pick up the science of Krishna for their own good, for the good of society, and for the good of all the world's people. Any questions up to this point? Comments? Okay, not yet. All right, here we go. A short sketch of the life and teachings of Lord Chaitanya, the preacher of Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the great apostle of love of God and the father of the congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord, advented himself at Sridham Mayapur, a quarter in the city of Navadvip in Bengal, on the Phalguni Purnima evening in the year 1407, Shakabda, corresponding to February 1486 by the Christian calendar. His father, Sri Jagannath Mishra, a learned Brahmana from the district of Sylhet, came to Navadvip as a student, because at that time Navadvip was considered to be the center of education and culture. He domiciled on the banks of the Ganges after marrying Srimati Shachi Devi, a daughter of Srila Nilambara Chakravarti, the great learned scholar of Navadvip. Jagannath Mishra had a number of daughters by his wife Srimati Shachi Devi, and most of them expired at an early age. Two surviving sons, Sri Vishvarupa and Vishvambar, became at last the object of their paternal affection. The 10th and youngest son, who was named Vishvambar, later became known as Nimai Pandit, and then, after accepting the renounced order of life, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited his transcendental activities for 48 years and then disappeared in the year 1455, Shakabda, at Puri, and that's 1534 AD. For his first 24 years, he remained at Navadvip as a student and householder. His first wife was Srimati Lakshmi Priya, who died at an early age when the Lord was away from home. When he returned from East Bengal, he was requested by his mother to accept a second wife, and he agreed. His second wife was Srimati Vishnupriya Devi, who bore the separation of the Lord throughout her life, because the Lord took the order of sannyas at the age of 24, when Srimati Vishnupriya was barely 16 years old. After taking sannyas, the Lord made his headquarters at Jagannath Puri, due to the request of his mother, Srimati Shachi Devi. The Lord remained for 24 years at Puri. For 6 years of this time, he traveled continuously all over India, and especially throughout southern India, preaching the Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Chaitanya not only preached the Srimad Bhagavatam, but propagated the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita as well in the most practical way. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Sri Krishna is depicted as the absolute personality of Godhead, and his last teachings in that great book of transcendental knowledge instruct that one should give up all the modes of religious activities and accept him, Lord Sri Krishna, as the only worshipable Lord. The Lord then assured that all his devotees would be protected from all sorts of sinful acts, and that for them there would be no cause for anxiety. Unfortunately, despite Lord Sri Krishna's direct order and the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, less intelligent people misunderstand him to be nothing but a great historical personality, and thus they cannot accept him as the original personality of Godhead. Such men with a poor fund of knowledge are misled by many non-devotees. Thus the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita were misinterpreted even by great scholars. Excuse me. After the disappearance of Lord Sri Krishna, There were hundreds of commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita by many erudite scholars, and almost every one of them was motivated by self-interest. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the self-same Lord Sri Krishna. This time, however, he appeared as a great devotee of the Lord in order to preach to the people in general, as well as to religionists and philosophers, about the transcendental position of Sri Krishna, the primeval Lord and the cause of all causes. The essence of his preaching is that Lord Sri Krishna, who appeared at Brajabhumi, Vrindavan, is the son of the king of Braj, Nanda Maharaj, and is the supreme personality of Godhead and therefore worshipable by all. Vrindavan Dham is non-different from the Lord because the name, fame, form, and place where the Lord manifests himself are all identical with the Lord as absolute knowledge. Therefore, Vrindavan Dham is as worshipable as the Lord. The highest form of transcendental worship of the Lord was exhibited by the damsels of Brajabhumi in the form of pure affection for the Lord. And Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommends this process as the most excellent mode of worship. He accepts the Srimad Bhagavatam Purana as the spotless literature for understanding the Lord, and he preached that the ultimate goal of life for all human beings is to attain the stage of prema, or love of God. Many devotees of Lord Chaitanya, like Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur, Sri Lochana Das Thakur, Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, Sri Kavikarnapura, Sri Prabodhananda Saraswati, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatana Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, and in this latter age, within 200 years, Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti, Sri Baladeva Vidyabhushana, Sri Shamananda Goswami, Sri Narottam Das Thakur, Sri Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and at last, Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, our spiritual master, and many other great and renowned scholars and devotees of the Lord have prepared voluminous books and literatures on the life and precepts of the Lord. Such literatures are all based on the Shastras, like the Vedas, Puranas, Upanishads, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and other histories and authentic literatures approved by the recognized acharyas. They are unique in composition and unrivaled in presentation, and they are full of transcendental knowledge. Unfortunately, the people of the world are still ignorant of them. But when these literatures, which are mostly in Sanskrit and Bengali, come to light the world, and when they are presented before thinking people, then India's glory and the message of love will overflood this morbid world, which is vainly searching after peace and prosperity by various illusory methods not approved by the acharyas in the chain of disciplic succession. The readers of this small description of the life and precepts of Lord Chaitanya will profit much to go through the books of Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur, the Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, and Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. The early life of the Lord is most fascinatingly expressed by the author of Chaitanya Bhagavat, and as far as the teachings are concerned, they are more vividly explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now they are available to the English-speaking public in our teachings of Lord Chaitanya. The Lord's early life was recorded by one of his chief devotees and contemporaries, namely Srila Murari Gupta, a medical practitioner of that time. The latter part of the life of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was recorded by his private secretary, Sri Damodar Goswami, or Srila Swarup Damodar, who was practically a constant companion of the Lord at Puri. These two devotees recorded practically all the incidences of the Lord's activities, and later on, all the books dealing with the Lord, which are above mentioned, were composed on the basis of karchas or tributes by Srila Damodar Goswami and Murari Gupta. So the Lord advented himself on the Phalguni Purnima evening of 1407 Shakabda. And it was by the will of the Lord that there was a lunar eclipse on that evening. During the hours of eclipse, it was the custom of the Hindu public to take bath in the Ganges or any other sacred river and chant the Vedic mantras for purification. When Lord Chaitanya was born during the lunar eclipse, all India was roaring with the holy sound of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. These 16 names of the Lord are mentioned in many Puranas and Upanishads, and they are described as the Tarika Brahmanam of this age. It is recommended in the Shastras that offenseless chanting of these holy names of the Lord can deliver a fallen soul from material bondage. There are innumerable names of the Lord, both in India and outside, and all of them are equally good because all of them indicate the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But because these 16 are especially recommended for this age, people should take advantage of them and follow the path of the great acharyas who attain success by practicing the rules of the Shastras, the revealed scriptures. The simultaneous occurrence of the Lord's appearance and the lunar eclipse indicated the distinctive mission of the Lord. This mission was to preach the importance of chanting the holy names of the Lord in this age of Kali, or quarrel. In this present age, quarrels take place over even trifles, and therefore the Shastras have recommended for this age a common platform for realization, namely chanting the holy names of the Lord. People can hold meetings to glorify the Lord in their respective languages and with melodious songs, and if such performances are executed in an offenseless manner, it is certain that the participants will gradually attain spiritual perfection without having to undergo more rigorous methods. At such meetings, everyone, the learned and the foolish, the rich and the poor, the Hindus and the Muslims, the Englishmen and the Indians, the Chandala and the Brahmanas, can all hear the transcendental sounds and thus cleanse the dust of material association from the mirror of the heart. To confirm the Lord's mission, all the people of the world will accept the holy name of the Lord as the common platform for the universal religion of mankind. In other words, the advent of the holy name took place along with the advent of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When the Lord was on the lap of his mother, he would at once stop crying as soon as the ladies surrounding him chanted the holy names and clapped their hands. This peculiar incident was observed by the neighbors with awe and veneration. Sometimes the young girls took pleasure in making the Lord cry and then stopping him by chanting the holy name. That's funny. So from his very childhood, the Lord began to preach the importance of the holy name. In his early age, Lord Sri Chaitanya was known as Nimai. This name was given by his beloved mother because the Lord took his birth beneath a nim tree in the courtyard of his paternal house. When the Lord was offered solid food at the age of 6 months in the Annaprasana ceremony, the Lord indicated his future activities. At this time, it was customary to offer the child both coins and books in order to get some indication of the future tendencies of the child. The Lord was offered on one side coins and on the other side the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Lord accepted the Bhagavatam instead of the coins. So this next paragraph, there's a picture there. This picture goes with this next paragraph there on the slideshow. So when he was a mere baby, crawling in the yard, one day a snake appeared before him, and the Lord began to play with it. All the members of the house were struck with fear and awe, But after a little while, the snake went away, and the baby was taken away by his mother. Once he was stolen by a thief who intended to steal his ornaments. But the Lord took a pleasure trip on the shoulder of the bewildered thief who was searching for a solitary place in order to rob the baby. It so happened that the thief, wandering hither and thither, finally arrived just before the house of Jagannath Mishra, and, being afraid of being caught, dropped the baby at once. Of course, the anxious parents and relatives were glad to see the lost child again. Once a pilgrim Brahmana was received at the house of Jagannath Mishra, and when he was offering food to the Godhead, the Lord appeared before him and partook of the prepared food. The eatables had to be rejected because the child had touched them, and so the Brahmana had to make another preparation. The next time, the same thing happened, and when this happened repeatedly for the third time, the baby was finally put to bed. At about 12 at night, when all the members of the house were fast asleep within their closed rooms, the pilgrim Brahmana offered his specially prepared foods to the deity, and, in the same way, the baby Lord appeared before the pilgrim and spoiled his offerings. The Brahmana then began to cry, but since everyone was fast asleep, no one could hear him. At that time, the baby Lord appeared before the fortunate Brahmana and disclosed his identity as Krishna himself. The Brahmana was forbidden to disclose this incident, and the baby returned to the lap of his mother. There are many similar incidences in his childhood. As a naughty boy, he sometimes used to tease the Orthodox Brahmanas who used to bathe in the Ganges. When the Brahmanas complained to his father that he was splashing them with water instead of attending school, the Lord suddenly appeared before his father, as though just coming from school with all his school clothes and books. At the bathing ghat, he also used to play jokes on the neighboring girls who were engaged in worshiping Shiva in hopes of getting good husbands. This is a common practice amongst unmarried girls in Hindu families. And while they were engaged in such worship, the Lord naughtily appeared before them and said, "My dear sisters, please give me all the offerings you have just brought for Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is my devotee, and Parvati is my maidservant. If you worship me, then Lord Shiva and all the other demigods will be more satisfied." Some of them refused to obey the naughty Lord, and he would curse them that due to their refusal they would be married to old men who had 7 children by their previous wives. Out of fear and sometimes out of love, the girls would also offer him various goods, and then the Lord would bless them and assure them that they would have very good young husbands and they would be mothers of dozens of children. The blessings would enliven the girls, but they often used to complain of these incidences to their mothers, and to his mother too, by the way. So in this way, the Lord passed his early childhood. When he was just 16 years old, he started his own Chatushpati, a village school conducted by a learned Brahmin. In this school, he would simply explain Krishna, even in readings of grammar. Srila Jiva Goswami, in order to please the Lord, later composed a grammar in Sanskrit, in which all the rules of grammar were explained with examples that use the holy name of the Lord. This grammar is still current. It is known as Harinamamrita Vyakarana and is prescribed in the syllabus of schools in Bengal. Kandita is laughing, and she says, Lord Nimai was such fun. Yes, he was quite a rascal. So during this time, a great Kashmir scholar named Keshava Kashmiri came to Navadvip to hold discussions on the Shastras. The Kashmir Pandit was a champion scholar, and he had traveled to all places of learning in India. Finally, he came to Navadvip to contest the learned pundits there. The pundits of Navadvip decided to match Nimai Pandit, Lord Chaitanya, with the Kashmir Pandit, thinking that if Nimai Pandit were defeated, they would have another chance to debate with the scholar, for Nimai Pandit was only a boy. And if the Kashmir Pandit was defeated, then they would even be more glorified, because people would proclaim that a mere boy of Navadvip defeated a champion scholar who was famous throughout India. It so happened that Nimai Pandit met Keshava Kashmiri while strolling on the banks of the Ganges. The Lord requested him to compose a Sanskrit verse in praise of the Ganges, and the Pandit, within a short time, composed 100 shlokas, reciting the verses like a storm and showing the strength of his vast learning. Nimai Pandit at once memorized all the shlokas without an error. He quoted the 64th shloka and pointed out certain rhetorical and literary irregularities. He particularly questioned the Pandit's use of the words bhavani bhartuhu. He pointed out that the use of these two words was redundant. Bhavani means the wife of Shiva, and who else can be her bharta or husband? He also pointed out several other discrepancies, and the Kashmir Pandit was struck with wonder. He was astonished that a mere student of grammar could point out the literary mistakes of an erudite scholar. Although this matter was ended prior to any public meeting, the news spread like wildfire all over Navadvip. But finally, Keshava Kashmiri was ordered in a dream by Saraswati, the goddess of learning, to submit to the Lord, and thus the Kashmir Pandit became a follower of the Lord. Let me just look and see where we are in this. Let me read this next paragraph. It's a little bit long, but it also is this next slide there on the slideshow. The Lord was then married with great pomp and gaiety, and at this time he began to preach the congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord at Navadvip. Some of the Brahmanas became envious of his popularity, and they put many hindrances on his path. They were so jealous that they finally took the matter before the Muslim magistrate at Navadvip. Bengal was then governed by Pathans, and the governor of the province was Nawab Hussain Shah. The Muslim magistrate of Navadvip took up the complaints of the Brahmanas seriously, and at first he warned the followers of Nimai Pandit not to chant loudly the name of Hari. But Lord Chaitanya asked his followers to disobey the orders of the Qazi, and they went on with their Sankirtan chanting party as usual. The magistrate then sent constables who interrupted a Sankirtan and broke some of the mridangas, the drums. When Nimai Pandit heard of this incident, he organized a party for civil disobedience. He was the pioneer of civil disobedience movement in India for the right cause. He organized a procession of 100,000 men with thousands of mridangas and kartals, the hand cymbals, and this procession passed over the roads of Navadvip in defiance of the Qazi who issued the order. Finally, the procession reached the house of the Qazi, who went upstairs out of fear of the masses. Great crowds assembled at the Qazi's house and displayed a violent temper, but the Lord asked them to be peaceful. Kandita says they were the original protesters. Yes. At this time, the Qazi came down and tried to pacify the Lord by addressing him as his nephew. He pointed out that Nilambara Chakravarti referred to him as an uncle, And consequently, Srimati Shachi Devi, the mother of Nimai Pandit, was his sister. He asked the Lord whether his sister's son could be angry at his maternal uncle, and the Lord replied that since the Kazi was his maternal uncle, he should receive his nephew well at his home. In this way, the issue was mitigated, and the two learned scholars began a long discussion on the Quran and the Hindu Shastras. The Lord raised the question of cow killing, and the Qazi promptly answered him by referring to the Quran. In turn, the Qazi also questioned the Lord about cow sacrifice in the Vedas, and the Lord replied that such sacrifice as mentioned in the Vedas is not actually cow killing, and that sacrifice, an old bull or cow was sacrificed for the sake of receiving a fresh, younger life by the power of Vedic mantras. But in the Kali Yuga, such cow sacrifices are forbidden because there are no qualified brahmanas capable of conducting such a sacrifice. In fact, in Kali Yuga, all yajnas or sacrifices are forbidden because they are useless attempts by foolish men. In Kali Yuga, only the Sankirtan yajna is recommended for all practical purposes. Speaking in this way, the Lord finally convinced the Qazi, who became the Lord's follower. The Qazi thenceforth declared that no one should hinder the Sankirtan movement, which was started by the Lord, and the Qazi left this order in his will for the sake of his progeny. The Qazi's tomb still exists in the area of Navadvip, and Hindu pilgrims go there to show their respects. The Qazi's descendants are residents, and they never objected to Sankirtan, even during the Hindu-Muslim riots. So I think we'll stop there and pick it up next time. Kandita says, Hare Krishna. Any comments, questions? Oh. Ocean Man says, this may be an ignorant question, so my apologies if it is meaningless. It is said in reference to the Mahamantra, these 16 names, but it's only 3 names. So why do we chant them in the specific design of 16? And are they different because of their position in the mantra? Are they considered each different as a noun, verb, or adjective to give significant individual meaning? It is only 3 words, and they are in that order. I don't know. Lord Chaitanya chanted it that way. I've never heard anything about that. I know that Hare is the vocative, like Hey Hare. That's pretty much all I know. Kandita, do you want to address that question? Have any comments about that?
I think this is just what the Lord created, and therefore it's all auspicious, and that it's just what He decided to do. And there can really be no other explanation. It's the Maha Mantra that contains all the other mantras, um, and it's just how the Lord decided to manifest himself in that way. And I don't think there can be any limitation put on it or any categorization put on it as far as, noun, verb, or adjectives. Hare, like you said, is invocative of the energy of the Lord. I was told, oh, energy of the Lord, which is Srimati Radharani, please engage me in Krishna's service. And Krishna This means the all attractive one. And Rama is also can be to Lord Ram, as in Ramchandra, and Rama, as in Lord Balaram, depending on who the chanter is wanting to focus on. And so it's just like, oh, why is this sky blue and why is Krishna blue? And it's just what the sweet Lord decided that this is what he wanted. So, anyway, that's all I have to say. There's no particular reason. It's just that that's what he wanted, and it can bring us, it's all we need, and it doesn't have to be chanted in a certain way. Um, like breathing techniques and just various rituals used with it and anything like that. It can be chanted anywhere and everywhere. And it's the way we can actually directly associate with the Lord, with Lord Krishna, and become realized, develop our real loving devotional relationship with Him. So we even said that it's the only way, the only way, the only way in this age of Kali Yuga to get completely purified and go back home, back to Godhead.
Great, thank you.
Thank
So
you.
Rama also is can mean the enjoyer, so enjoyer of Radha. But the thing about Hare Krishna and Rama, and I'm sure you all know this, but the name and the named, so Krishna and the name are the same. So as Kandita was saying, chanting purifies us, but chanting is our opportunity to associate with Krishna personally because his name is him. So we are there in his presence and we can develop our relationship by chanting, by being in that association with Krishna. And I'm sure that's way more than you wanted in answer asking that question, but there it is. I'm just going to go through chat as it is. I think you may have said more, but let me answer Bhakti's question. The only thing I noticed, we talked the mirror of the heart. Yeah, Prabhupada said mirror of the heart in this introduction. Mirror of the heart, and it's that whole idea of cleansing the heart, cleansing the mirror, so you can see who you really are. So that's that whole imagery. That chanting is that cleansing of the mirror.
Yes, we have a spiritual identity, an eternal spiritual identity and spiritual body that has nothing to do with our current material body. And when we become self realized, that's when that is revealed to us according to our desire.
Well, it's according to our bhav, how we
Yeah.
develop that. So
Yes.
Ocean Man says, I never thought of it until this reading. Well, in the context of the reading about the erudite scholar and the grammar, it just made me wonder why it's formed in that way specifically, because it says 16 names. Yes, Ocean Man continues. Yes, that was maybe my question, because each name has many meanings, and that maybe in that grammatical form of 16, that it had a way of expression that I didn't fully understand. Oops, my mouse didn't work. Kandita says, yes, it's a loaded question. Well, I'm finding a lot of really wonderful things online in Rays of the Harmonist, um, which includes a lot of writings of Srila Prabhupada when he was younger, but also Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati about chanting. And for me, it just is opening up this whole idea of chanting. I mean, I've been chanting all this time, right? Yes, your mind is swimming over it. Yes, it does. And it just, there's so much more that we don't know about chanting, and the only way we can do that is to just keep chanting. But here in this preface, Srila Prabhupada says that there's the Bhagavatam the book and Bhagavatam the person, and that we need to associate with both Bhagavatam the book and Bhagavatam the person. And so, so in addition to our chanting, we also need to be reading. Ocean Man says that maybe I don't comprehend the structure of the significance of each name. It appeared the reading was telling me to think of it this way. Well, I think that's an important thing to follow, because Chaitya Guru is there in our heart, and Paramatma is always guiding us. The thing is, though, that you need to have enough knowledge to know when it's Paramatma or it's your mind. So those are important things to kind of think about when you have ideas about things. The only way you can discern whether it's one or the other is to meditate on it, and read. And for myself, I know that when I have questions like that, oftentimes they come up in the reading. The answer comes up in the reading. So, believe that Krishna is there guiding you, and he will guide you to those answers. We may not have the answers here in this little Sangha, but the answers are out there, and Krishna will take you to those answers. So just hearing, chanting, remembering, those are the things. Kandita says, yes, Krishna does do that. So yeah, I had a question the other day about something, and I thought, I read it and I thought, oh, some devotee said it, and I thought, oh, I've never heard that. That doesn't make sense at all. And then today, I read it. It was like, oh my God, there it is right there in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So Ocean Man says, I try only to read after I've chanted or done Gayatri, so I don't get confused with my own thoughts. That's a good idea too. Absolutely. Yeah, it can be tricky. It can be tricky. I mean, I have a way that I do it. I'll share it with you because I've shared it with other people publicly before. But so if I have a question about something and an answer comes to me, I sit with it for a long time. A long time. It used to be when I was younger, weeks. I'd sit with it for weeks. And sit with it, I mean, by actually sitting and meditating on it, or, it would come up during the day and I would think, oh, what do you think, Krishna? Is this it? And then I would get a response. I truly believe that he responded and told me yay or nay, whether that was correct or not. So, you and Krishna are like buds. You're buddies. You just don't know it. So this whole thing that we're doing is clearing that mirror, clearing that ground, clearing everything out of the way so that you know that relationship with Krishna. You have that. You just don't know it. You need to develop it. So Sambandha is the first step, developing that relationship with Krishna. So hearing, chanting, remembering. So is Ocean Man says the note card actually mentioned some things I was discussing with a friend recently. So I find that Krishna gives me information at the right times when I'm ready for it. There you go. There you go. So yeah, it happens. It happens constantly. When you jump in feet first into this ocean of bhakti, that's what happens. Krishna's right there. He's right there. He'll answer your questions. He'll guide you. He'll provide for you. The more you depend on him, the more it happens. So there it is. Bhakti yoga in a nutshell. There it is. Canditas. Yes. All right, my friends. So next week we'll finish reading about Lord Chaitanya in this introduction, and then we'll go right in, jump right in. All right. Thank you very much. It's so wonderful to see you all. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.